In this video, I'm going to talk about Microsoft Flow approvals. Now, we are in the multi-part series for Approvals Kit. Now, this particular segment is basically about having those prerequisites set up within your environment in order to install Microsoft Approval Kit. Now, by default, Microsoft Flow Approvals is not installed within the Power Platform environment. So we need to explicitly install it. Now, what is it? It's basically an out of the box approval flow mechanism available within Microsoft Power Automate. Now, do we need to install it explicitly? By default, it is not enabled. We need to turn it on at an environment level, but there is no specific switch to turn it on. What you need to do is like you need to either execute a flow or run some PowerShell script or a PackCLI script to install the solutions related to out of the box Microsoft Flow approval. Now remember, we haven't installed anything on approvals kit framework. So this is just a prerequisite for that. Now, what happens is once you have those Microsoft Flow approval solutions within the Power Platform environment, it basically installs two solutions, Microsoft Flow Approval and Microsoft Flow Approvals Core. This is out of the box Microsoft Flow Approval, which needs to be present before you even install the approval kit. Approval connector is available for Microsoft Power Automate and connector has four actions. Now, how to set up? By running first approval flow in the tenant or install using CLI. So this is a simple command, pack application install dash dash environment, give the environment ID, dash dash application dash name, and give this in hardcode, msdyn dot underscore flow approvals. Once you do that, either of this process, then Microsoft Flow approval solution will get installed in the environment. It might take like 5 to 10 minutes. And after that, you will be able to use the approval system, which is available out of the box in Microsoft Power Automate. So these are the two solutions which gets installed. msdyn underscore flow approvals and msdyn underscore flow approvals core. Now, if you see over here, in Power Automate, you will see this approval section. From here, you can perform an approval action like either approve or reject for a specific request. Now, in Power Automate, once you have the out of the box approvals in place, you will be able to use this particular actions like create an approval, start and wait for an approval, start and wait for an approval of text, wait for an approval. Within the approval types, you will see approve or reject, everyone must approve, approve or reject, first to respond, custom responses. Those things will be always made available for you for the approval type. Basically, what it says is like you can have an approval system in place whereby you can ask responses from multiple members. Now, the multiple members either is the first one to respond or everyone should approve for that approval actions to be succeed. Now, there can be custom responses. So if you are into some different domain and if you just do not want approve or reject, but you can have yes, no, or maybe you can ask for multiple choices from the approver, then you can use custom responses. Now, capability of Microsoft Flow approval is like it can implement approval with low code, no code approach. And these are the type which we discussed, like first to respond, everyone must respond, wait for one response, wait for all responses. And once you have the approvals in place, then there is a facility to get the approvals in an email. So here, this is an example of an email. Then here on the bottom, you can receive an approval in Microsoft Teams. Okay. Then here you can even do the action in Power Automate interface as well. So there are three different places whereby you can receive notification provided you have configured the solution accordingly. Now, approvals, how it looks something like this. You will have a right pane whereby you can see all the approval process, how it has been moved, and once the approval is completed, you will get this message like you have already completed this request. So like this, you can see the history of the approval process. Approvals action, there are multiple actions which we can take. One is approve and reject, which is very common. But then if someone wants to cancel the approval process, then you can do that cancel request from Teams or any other interface as well, or you can reassign the approval to someone else. You can even do a follow up in Teams. So like this, depending on the scenario, you can make those workflow execute as per the request. There are ways whereby you can cancel the request and then the approval will go in that cancel state, and thereby you can see the reason behind the cancellation. You can even reassign it to a specific user. If that user is not available, if the user is not available for approval, then you can even do that. So like this, you can have a follow-up actions as well. Once everything is done, you will see the approval details which you put in the application in this fashion. So first one is like in an email over here. Then we have Teams, and then we have in Power Automate. You can even attach a file while sending an approval. So this is one example where a file has been attached, and this is how it looks in an email, how it looks in a Teams, and how it looks in uh, Microsoft Power Automate. So this is all about from a theory perspective. Let's jump into the demo. So I just want to show you first thing. So I have this environment where I have already installed the out of the box approval. So in Girish Dev. So if you closely watch the solution, here I can see Microsoft Flow Approvals and Microsoft Flow Approval Core Solution. And this was installed 11 months ago. Now, what I'm going to do, I'll take a fresh tenant. Now, this is a fresh environment. So this is an environment called as Kit. Okay. Now here, the in the Kit environment, it does not have any unmanaged. It has unmanaged solution. It has managed solution, but it does not have those out of the box flow approval solutions. So there are a couple of things to do that. One is if you go to Power Automate, and within Power Automate, you select the right environment. And what you can do, you can go to My Flows, New Flow, and create an instant cloud flow and call this as whatever you want. So flow one, okay. Manually trigger a flow, click on create, go to the new designer, or switch back from the old designer, click on new step, and once you type approvals, here you will see create an approval step. Now I'll select create an approval step, and it will create a connection for approvals. Okay. And then you can select the type, approval type, everyone, accept, approve, reject. So those kind of thing. And once you save it and once you run this flow, then what happens in the back end, it will start installing those solution. Okay. But remember, once you run the solution, once you run the flow, but now we are not going to do that. What we are going to do, we are going to take some different approach. There is an approach through CLI through which we can run the solution. Now through CLI, there is a simple command called as Speck application install. Okay, but before you run the CLI, there are some things which we need to set. So first, what you need to do is like you need to find the environment ID. So we know the environment ID, but if you don't know in CLI, you can do a pack org list. But in CLI, you need to first authenticate. Now, I have already authenticated, and that's why you will see a whole bunch of information within my pack authentication. Okay, so first authenticate yourself, and then once you do that, then you can run this command pack org list. So what it does, it will list out all the environment within your tenant. Now here we are just interested in this Kit part. Okay, so I'll just copy this, and maybe I'll make use of Notepad. So maybe I'll just click on Notepad here, and I'll copy the environment ID. Now I'll draft a command. Okay, which command? Pack application install. So this is the command, pack application install dash dash environment, and this is the environment ID which I want. So here we are going to install that solution, out of the box approval solution. Now what is the name of the solution? It's app. So I'll just put a syntax application name, and then the application spelling. Yep, application dash name, and the name of the application, this you need to get it from the Microsoft documentation, so which you have already copied from Microsoft documentation, which is mstein underscore flow approvals. Let's see what happens once we run this command. Okay, so this is the basic command, pack application install, specify the environment ID and the application name which you want to install. But before you run this command, go to pack auth and see the list. You need to be in the correct environment for the pack authentication. So first here, if this is not selected as star, then that means this is not the right environment. Now it is already selected star, so that's why it's the right environment. So let's assume if I do this selection, okay, so select dash dash index maybe 1, okay, and I'll run this again, pack auth list. So if you see here, the star goes to the first number, which is universal, just universal. And this is not the right environment. This is not the right environment. If I want this environment to be selected, then what you need to do is you need to just say pack auth select. And what is the number? Number is 4. Dash dash index 4. And then when you run this command, pack auth list, then you will see that universal kit is enabled. Okay, universal kit selection is there. Right, so all good. I'm not going to run this command, so I'll just clear the screen and I'll install this, run this command, pack application install. Now, if everything works fine, then what it's going to do, it will first check whether the application is currently installed or not. And if not, then it will start installing the solution in the kit environment. So as you see over here, it is started installation process. Now you can also view here in the uh, user interface in the environments. I'm in the environment kit. Now here, if I go to manage, then here you will find that solution installed after a while, once the solution gets installed. Okay, so we'll wait for some time and we'll come back. So as you see over here, the command has successfully been executed. So application has been successfully installed, as you see over here. And now I think we should be able to see that in the UI as well. So if we navigate to the UI, if we go to the manage solution, we should see two more solutions rightly, which has name as Microsoft Flow Approvals and Microsoft Flow Approvals Core Solution. So Microsoft Flow Approvals, if I click on Microsoft Flow Approvals, I can see what is there in Microsoft Flow Approval Solutions. There will be some sort of internal code for approvals. And if I go to Microsoft Flow Approvals Core Solution, here also you will see a lot of API request tables, which internally being used by out of the box approval. Now, what are we going to do with that? The first prerequisite is complete, but in order to verify that, what we're going to do, we will just run a simple approval. So I'm creating the flow one, manually triggering a flow. I've create an approval, and approval type is say first to respond. And I will just click on new step. Maybe I'll just see here what is the approval. So I'll call this approval as employee leave approval. Okay, and this I will assign it to, so maybe myself. I'll just send across to me, and the details I'll say details of leave request and some text. I'll just put some lorem ipsum, and I can put an item link or item description. Let me give a link. Let me give a link to my website, and in the item link description, I'll just put Girish website. Okay, so and if you want to see more advanced option, you can see that who is the requester. Now by default it will be sent by Power Automate. You can specify which requester you want. Enable notification either yes or no. Enable reassignment, so we don't want this request to be reassigned to someone. We can mark it as no as well. And if you have any attachments, then you can attach into the approval system. Now I'll just save this. Now parallelly, what I'm going to do, I'm going to open my email. Also, I'm going to open Microsoft Teams just to show you what happens when you run that approval process. Now, remember, this is an out of the box approval process. Why we are doing all this? Because this is a prerequisite that the out of the box flow approval should be enabled before we even install approval kit. Now, flow is ready. Everything good. Let's see in the email. So Teams, like I'm logging to the Teams as well. Now here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to test it. So I'll just click on test, and I'll click on manually, and I'll click on test. Now this will establish that connection. And once that connection is established, it will run that flow. So the flow, basically, it will send an approval to Girish. Now here, if you on the left hand side, if you see this approvals, okay. So if I click on approvals, here you will receive an entry. Now this is the one which we have received just now, employee leave approval. So from here, within the flow itself, you can approve or reject a request. So this is one interface. Second interface is we need to check whether you have received an email or not. So quite possible you may receive an email if you have turned on the notification, and if you have turned on the notification, then you will receive an email, and then from there you can do an approve or reject. Also, you will receive an email, like you will receive a Teams notification as well. So let me switch back to the new Teams, let it load. Now here, if you see in Outlook, I have received an email. Now here, I can do an approve, I can do a reject, I can put my comments as well. Okay. So this is like the second place through which you receive a notification. Third is Teams. So let the team load. So before that, what we can do is say, let me approve from here itself. So let me approve this. So if I click on approve, then a pane will open, and then here you need to specify. I'll just say approved from Power Automate. So this is the first method through which we have approved the request. Okay, so it is approved from Power Automate. Now here, if you see under activity, it has automatically changed it to approved because we have already approved from Power Automate, and that's why it has come as like this. Now let's do one thing. Let's run this flow again. Now we have used Power Automate, and in the Power Automate you can see all the history, what's happening, how the workflow has been executed. So you can see all the details over here. You can see the details on the right hand side, who has approved, what it has been approved with. Now let me can go back to the flow and run it one more time. Let me run this. Now this time I'm going to approve using Microsoft Outlook. So I'm running the flow for the second time. I will receive the same notification in Microsoft Power Automate as well, but I want to approve the leave request from Outlook. So let me refresh this. I should receive a second email. Let's see the status of the history. So run history. Yes, I think I see the red icon over here. So that means we have received an email. Yes. From here, what I'm going to do from Outlook, I'm going to reject this particular request. I'll say reject it. And I'll click on submit. Now what happens with this email is this email will change its shape and form. Now here, it will give you the status here itself. So you can't again do that action again and again. And that's why you see this. Similarly, if you see the old earlier email, this was already you have already completed this request. So you will receive these kind of notifications in an email. Now let's run this flow the third time. And this time I'm going to use Teams to provide my approval. Okay. And here I'm just going to run it again. So you need not test completely all the scenarios before you install approval kit. It's just that you just need to install the solution and ensure that the solution is correctly installed or not. So we are just verifying it. Now here I have sent this request. It will be received in Teams. So in Teams, I've got a card which says Girish has sent you a request. This is a leave approval. This is the attachment. Attachment is basically a hyperlink to the website. And in the comments, I'll say, okay, approved for leave. This is my comment, and I can either follow up or cancel the request, or maybe I can approve or reject. Let me approve this. Once it is approved, again, you will see the request lined up over here. The first one was approved, second was rejected, and third one was approved. First one we did using Power Automate, second we did using Outlook, third we did using Teams. Similarly, in Outlook as well, if you see that request, this particular request is, you will see you have already completed this request. So like this, we can execute flows. Okay. Now remember, this is just an out of the box flow. Okay. So if I again author this flow and go into this interface, there are a lot of things which you can do and cannot do with this flow. Now, some of the things which you can do with the flow is, one is you can wait for everyone to respond. You can wait for the first person to respond. You can put a custom responses, like if you don't want approve or reject, you want yes, no, or some other choices, you can do that. And there are other things which whereby you can ask for all responses or wait for one response. There are other actions which you can use from an approval perspective, so let's watch for that as well. So if you see in the approvals, there are something like start and wait for an approval. Now what has happened in this approval process is, before we even get the response, this flow was completed. So with start and wait for approval, what will happen is, if you receive a request, then it will wait until an action is taken place. Okay. And there is also a wait for an approval. So you can actually introduce wait just by referring to the approval ID from the previous step. So these are the four possible combination which you can do within the out of the box workflow process. But with an approval kit, there are many things which you can author, which you can design, which you can control, and which you can utilize from a complex workflow perspective. So which we are going to cover in the upcoming videos. So that's it, folks. This is how you basically set up one of the prerequisite out of the box workflow within Microsoft Power Automate. Thanks for watching.